Welcome to How to Cook That. I'm Ann Reardon and today we're talking about poisonous foods. Let's start with one you may be familiar with, apple seeds. The seeds of the apple contain a substance called amygdalin, and when you eat that, it gets broken down and one of the byproducts is hydrogen cyanide. As you may know, cyanide is one of the most rapidly lethal toxins known to man, meaning if you are exposed to enough of it, you will die very, very quickly. We're talking within minutes to hours of being exposed to a toxic dose of it. Fortunately, apple seeds have a hard outer shell, so if you eat them whole, they're actually just going to go right the way through your digestive system and out the other end, and you're not going to be exposed to any cyanide at all. But that's not the case if you chomp on the apple seeds and chew them up. So then that begs the question, how many apple seeds will give you a toxic dose of cyanide? If you try and Google that, you will find such varying answers. They're wildly different to each other. And when I looked at the calculations used to figure it out, the main thing that was making that difference was the difference in what people estimated an apple seed to weigh and how many seeds are in an apple. So we can just measure that for ourselves and find out a more precise amount. This apple had 5 seeds and together they weighed 0.36 grams. Now if we repeat that a bunch of times, you can see it varies, but on average each apple had 0.393 grams of seeds in it. The study that tested the amygdalin content of different types of apple seeds found that the amygdalin content of apples varied depending on the breed of the apple. The one that had the highest amount was golden delicious apples, so that's what we're going to use for our calculations today. Now, the amount of cyanide that is toxic to a human is between 0.5 and 3.5 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So if you weighed 60 kilos or 130 pounds, you would need to eat between 382 and 2,625 apples and chew all the seeds so that they were all open. And so that's a huge amount of apples. It's very unlikely, and understandably that's why there are no reported cases of people dying from eating apple seeds. The reason the study was being done though was because commercial apple juice is often produced by crushing the whole apples, including the seeds, and they wanted to know how much of the amygdalin ends up in the juice, and are we getting concentrated amounts of it which could be dangerous. When they studied all the different juices, there was a range of amounts in the different ones depending what apples they used, but after crunching all the numbers they concluded that a man would have to have between 10 and 40 litres of apple juice in a day, and a child would have to have 8 litres of apple juice in a day for it to be dangerous. So that's unlikely, but because there haven't been any studies of the long-term health effects from having a low dose of amygdalin and therefore cyanide, they recommend that the seeds should probably be removed. So if you're making your own, take the seeds out before you process it. Now, despite apples having a lot of attention over the years, something that probably needs a lot more attention is flax seeds. Now, just like the apple seeds, these contain amygdalin, and if you eat them whole, it's going to pass right through your system, no cyanide, no problem. But if you buy them milled or if you grind them up or blend them yourself, then you're exposing yourself to that amygdalin, and there's plenty of YouTube videos that instruct you to do just that.
To reap the full benefits of your flax seeds, eat them as often as possible in the ground form.
Grind for a few seconds. So you see it's now in powder form.
A tablespoon of this in my smoothie or my porridge every day.
2 tablespoons per day.
The amount of amygdalin in flax seeds, just like in apples, varies according to the variety of flax seed and even where it's grown and the conditions it's grown under. So if we take the highest amount that's been measured in flax seed, just so that we have the worst case scenario if you've got that one in your house, then if you weighed 60 kilos and you ate between 70 and 160 grams of milled flaxseed, that would be enough for a lethal dose of cyanide. The European Food Safety Authority recommends that adults don't have more than a tablespoon of ground flaxseed in a day. Sweden, however, suggests that you should avoid milled flaxseed altogether because we don't know the safe level of it. And with symptoms like dizziness, headaches, nausea, irregular heartbeat, difficulty breathing, and if it's high enough dose, then death, it's not really worth the risk. Now, this is an area we're unlikely to get any clarification as to what the safe dose is, because if a scientist says, I want to do a study and give people doses of amygdalin to see what level of dosage they're going to get a toxic dose of cyanide, no ethics committee is going to pass that as a study. You can't, let's just see how much kills someone, shall we? You just wouldn't be able to do that. So if you're an adult and you want to risk it, then that's your choice. But if you have children, I'd suggest just leaving it out of their diets. Moving on to fugu. Fugu is famous in Japan. It is a type of pufferfish, and there are lots of different types of pufferfish, and not all of them are suitable for this dish. When I say suitable, this dish is not particularly safe because it has to be prepared very carefully by a qualified chef to remove the liver, the internal organs, and the eyes without piercing them, because they contain a neurotoxin called tetrodotoxin. Now, that neurotoxin is very powerful. It will start to act within 30 minutes to 3 hours, and it basically shuts down your nerve communication from your brain to your body. So it paralyzes you, starting with your fingers feeling numb and your tongue feeling numb, and then progressing from there to the point where the person's completely paralyzed. They can't talk, but they're still conscious, and then eventually they can't breathe and their heart stops beating. The only thing they can do for you, because there is no antidote to this toxin, all they can do is give you activated charcoal to bind up any of the toxin that's still in your gut and stop it being absorbed, and put you on life support to basically breathe for you and make your heart beat for you until the toxin wears off. I remember one time in Perth when we were swimming in the ocean with a group of friends, and some of them were scuba diving, and one of the guys who was scuba diving found this beautiful shell and he threw it to me, and I caught it and swam into shore with it. And then as I was walking along the beach, this little thing started to crawl out of the shell. So I dropped it, understandably, and then saw it was this cute little octopus, which was now covered in sand. So I picked it up by the shell and continued walking all the way back to where we had all of our stuff, got a bucket, filled it with water, dropped the shell in, and then I could see the iridescent blue rings of a blue-ringed octopus. Now, they contain the same toxin that is found in the fugu fish. One bite from a blue-ringed octopus can kill 26 men. So that was a close call. Back to fugu. Between 1996 and 2005, 431 people were hospitalised and 31 of them died from eating fugu in Japan. Over the last decade, though, those numbers have dropped quite dramatically, down to 6 people dying, and most of those were people who went fishing and caught a pufferfish and prepared it themselves to eat. So there's been lots of education posters like this one discouraging people from eating pufferfish, saying to throw it back in, and explaining that different varieties have the toxin in different places, with some of them even having the muscle meat being toxic as well. So just don't eat them and prepare them yourselves. If you really want to try it,
Not fugu.
try it in Tokyo or Kyoto, because there the chefs have to be qualified, and the qualification process is very rigorous and run by the government, and they can't even buy the fugu fish if they don't have their license.
Poison, tasty fish.
On to the next one, lentil crumbles. Last year, hundreds of people got very sick and had to be hospitalised, and 30 of them had to have their gallbladders removed after eating Daily Harvest's lentil crumbles.
Nearly 100 people have been hospitalized and hundreds more became sick after consuming Daily Harvest's French lentil and leek crumbles frozen meal.
Some of the victims say they have suffered serious liver and gallbladder problems.
People have the same exact symptoms as what I was having, elevated liver levels with no explanation.
There was, of course, a recall on the product, and the FDA FDA started testing straight away, and so did the company itself and some independent testers, all trying to figure out what it was that was in this product that was making people so very sick. They started testing for all the usual suspects like bacteria, so they tested for Listeria, E. coli, Staph, Clostridium, but all of those came back clear, so then they started testing for toxins that could possibly have got into the food. And again, it came back negative as well, so then they tested for heavy metals, and all of those came back as within the acceptable limits. So then finally they started trying to isolate what ingredient was in this one product that the company sold that wasn't in their other products, and they came up with tara flour. Now, in case you're wondering why didn't they start with what was on the ingredients list, it's because it's incredibly rare to have a food outbreak problem where it's something that the manufacturer has specifically put into the food and declared on their food label that it's in there. Usually it's something that's accidentally made its way into the food and contaminated it. So this was a very rare case indeed. Now, tara flour is a high protein flour made by grinding the seeds of the tara tree found in South America. Currently in the EU, Australia and New Zealand, tara gum is approved as a food additive, E417, which is a thickener, and it can be used in foods. It was re-evaluated for safety in 2017, and this document shows you what the panel looked at and all the different studies that have been done on tara gum, and all that data is taken into consideration in order for it to be approved for the specific use as a thickener in foods. But that's tara gum. That's not what was in this product, which was tara flour. Tara gum is made from the pods. Tara flour is apparently made from grinding the seeds, and I could not find any studies on humans as to the safety of using tara flour in foods. Certainly in Australia, it's not an approved food additive. You wouldn't be able to use it in any foods here. The US has a slightly different system though, where you can have things that are approved by the FDA and you can add them into your food product, or you can have things that are generally regarded as safe or GRAS. But for it to come under the GRAS ruling, the primary body of evidence and the studies have to be publicly available. And as I said, I couldn't find any studies on the safety of consuming tara flour, well, at least none that predated this outbreak anyway. Professor Neil Frunton from Michigan State University said that because it isn't GRAS for any use in food in the US, any food that contains it would be considered adulterated. Daily Harvest CEO Rachel Drury said they were looking for a protein source that they could put in their products that didn't contain nuts, soy or wheat, and they were introduced to tara flour by one of their suppliers. Apparently, according to Daily Harvest, their supplier told them that tara flour was GRAS, so they thought they could just put it in their food. They didn't do their own checks, and they're now suing their supplier. Because so many people got sick, there are now studies going on trying to find out what it is in tara flour that made people so ill. The first studies that were done in vivo, so in glass, when they tested for toxins and all that sort of stuff, came up with nothing in the tara flour at all. However, when they tested in vitro, so with live animals, they tested with mice, when they gave them tara flour, there was an increase in the levels of markers in their blood that showed there was toxicity happening with their kidneys and their livers. So that would suggest that there's something in the tara flour that once you eat it, it either gets digested or metabolized into a toxin that is then toxic for your liver and your other internal organs. What that is, we're still not sure. The study is hypothesizing that it could be bichiane, which is a non-protein amino acid which is present in high levels in tara flour. But more research is needed to confirm that. That is just a working hypothesis at this stage. So the takeaway from that is don't eat anything with tara flour in it. It is not good for you. It is the opposite of healthy. And if you are a food manufacturer, be careful what you put in your food. Check your local area to see what is approved and in what amounts and what uses it's approved for before you put it in. And don't assume that because it is natural that it is good for you or safe, because that is certainly not always the case. If you can get to a hospital fast enough, is to give you activated charcoal to bind up what's still in your stomach. With thanks to my patrons for your amazing support. You can jump on board and check out the different rewards by clicking on the link there. Make it a great week by being kind to others, and I'll see you on Friday.